have some slides here, but I will just start by saying hello, good evening, everyone. So glad that you were able to join tonight. I'm Ava Marie. You can call me Ava. And this is my first time facilitating a workshop with this subject or topic. So I'm very excited to be facilitating. I'm excited that people are interested. Um, and I, of course, welcome people's input and feedback as we go along. So I'm going to go ahead and start my slides. So I'll share my screen. So can everyone see a slide that looks correct, meaning it's full screen? Okay.
Yes, it looks good, Ava.
Okay, perfect. So this workshop is called Accessing Your Inner Wisdom, Connecting with Your Higher Self. And I'll just start by sharing a little bit about myself and how I came to host this. So again, I'm Ava. I am a Reiki practitioner trained through master teacher level. I also practice a form of healing called trance healing. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, trance is a form of mediumship that involves blending with spirit or spiritual energy, and then for the purpose of sending healing elsewhere. It's not really as popular, I've noticed, in the States. I think trance is much more popular probably in the UK. But I think the thing that it's most akin to is probably channeling. So if you were to think of like channeling, but working with healing guides to allow energy to flow. So those are the two main modalities that I use. I'm also an avid meditator. I've had a regular practice since probably 2010 or so, and a daily practice more recently, not the full time, but I'd say at least more than half of the time. So I don't know, maybe 6 years or so, it's been daily. And that informs my meditation, informs my other work. So it forms my healing and much of my life and what we're going to talk about today. So that's why I mention it. I also enjoy traveling. So I went to school and studied international affairs and pursued a career in international human rights work. And so my work has involved traveling to other countries for much of my career, although I'm from the Washington, D.C. area. And I'm also an animal lover, and I particularly enjoy if I'm able to incorporate animals into my healing work. So I love working with animals if I get the opportunity to do so. And I see we have a few folks. I would love to know where people who have joined today, to know who you are and what brought you here. I want to be conscientious of time. Sometimes I can get carried away and get lose track of time. But if we're able to just go around quickly and maybe just say who you are and what brought you here, perhaps where you're calling in from, I'd love to take a few minutes to do that before we proceed. So whoever would like to start, or perhaps call on someone. I see Jane.
Yep. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yeah, I've been into psychic stuff, had some early childhood openings, and in 2020 my husband was sick with cancer and I had a major revelation, and after he passed I used that revelation took me to people like Alice and Wanda and others. And it's been the best thing I've done.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing. And now I see Barb.
Hi, I'm in Florida right now, but I have been a member of the church since 2007, and I became one of the ministers in 2009. And I go back to having some psychic experiences as a child. Then I studied Zen macrobiotics in my 20s. Then all different types of things happened to me in my life, but I'm very active. I'm more of an intuitive healer, so I will use any techniques that I'm told to use when I'm doing a healing. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I'm Jillian. I just did my Reiki 3 with Alice. So I love these different events. I try to hop on whenever I can. Just want to learn as much as I can. So it's nice to be here.
Awesome. Welcome, Jillian.
Mm.
So on my screen next, I see Danielle.
Hi, I'm Danny. I heard about this event through the group Reiki on Sunday.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I was glad to learn about it, and I've completed Reiki 2. The cats are running around in the background,
Mhm.
and have been going to the Center for Spiritual Enlightenment for about 3 to 4 years now. So yeah, I'm here locally in Alexandria, Virginia.
Super. Welcome, Danny. Next, I see Holly.
So funny you called on Jillian and then Danny and then me because we're all from Alice's
Yes.
Reiki. There's probably other people here too, but yeah,
Mhm.
it's cool to see some familiar faces. I just finished up Reiki 3 with Alice. Hey, Jillian. And yeah, I'm excited to be here. Danny saw this was happening and shot me a message.
Thanks.
Mm.
Welcome. And thanks, Danny. Next, I see Montien. Not sure if I'm pronouncing your name.
Yeah, that's fine. Hi, I'm Montine. I'm driving, but I'll be home shortly. I have attended several classes through this group, through this church, and I've had a lot of psychic experiences in my lifetime. So I just love to come into the group and learn more and to grow and develop. So it popped up. I felt led to sign up for the class, so I'm here.
We're glad that you're here, Montine. Welcome. And next, I see Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol in Arlington, Alexandria, and that's Buddy Bird, who you can hear but not see since I'm off camera. But yes, and Buddy's very intuitive. Anyways, you know, I mean, I have plenty of background in metaphysics, but I was drawn tonight because I just wanted to see when you were speaking about connection with our higher self. Even though that's not unfamiliar to me, I thought it would be a very good to remind myself and hear what you have to say and share, because that connection, my connection isn't always confident or constant. And so I thought the experience tonight could be very helpful. So thank you.
Super. Welcome. Thanks for sharing. Erica. And I don't see Erica. If you'd like to share, feel free, Erica, but no pressure either way. And the last name I see is EL. We're just sharing basically our name and what brought us here today. But again, totally optional if you don't feel comfortable sharing. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead then and
Carol's there. I think she came on later.
yes, Carol, I think we heard from. So I think probably
And Ava, I just wanted to say
Mhm.
that I basically was on the board of directors with Juanita Acevedo, who is since deceased, Elizabeth Mullen, who is since deceased, and Pat Ray, who is in Georgia. And we spent 2 years working on the Constitution and bylaws to put the church together. And because we wanted a metaphysical church that basically said all paths lead to God. And I think we've absolutely accomplished that, because I have never had any feedback from anybody that they have not felt welcome at any single presentation that has ever been given. So I just wanted to put that out there. Okay, and that was 20 years ago.
okay. And I'm realizing, did I forget to call on you, Alice? I think I just
That's
assumed
okay. That's all right. You have a lot on your mind.
Alice is omniscient and I feel like we know her. But thank you for sharing that. And I see EL also has dropped a comment. Okay, well, welcome everyone. And I'll just go ahead back into my screen share again so that you can see. So there's my, make sure I'm sharing the correct version here. I think I'm sharing the wrong version. I want to make sure I have the right version. Okay, let's try that once more. Okay, so here we are back full screen again, right? Good. Okay, great. So what led to basically me doing this workshop again is through my own personal experience and journey over the past few years. So again, as I mentioned, I have a daily meditation practice and also regularly do healing work. And I think just over the course of my own exploration through dream work, meditation, shamanic journeying, realized that there was a common thread of me being able to connect with and receive guidance from my higher self. Also through talking to different readers, Alice included, I was able to, I think, help myself be more confident and over time in discerning what was coming, what information was coming through me instead of from me, and more specifically from my higher self. And I think just because, over time, I realized and I've observed that there are a lot of different, workshops related on different aspects of spirituality and spirit, but I don't see a lot that's specifically on the higher self. And I think the higher self is something that is talked about a lot, but then not necessarily focused on in this way. So that's why I decided to spotlight it in this workshop. So what I hope to cover is, what is the higher self? How does it communicate? What are some of the ways? What are some of the ways that we can trigger consciously higher self communication, and how to maintain a relationship with the higher self? So again, this is all coming from my own personal experience. I've worked with a lot of teachers over the years, but I do not profess to be an expert on the higher self. So just want to give that context. So first, what is the higher self? So as I mentioned, I think it's something that we use often. It's a term that's often used. We hear about it. It's not really focused on. And I think there may be some assumptions of that we're all talking about the same thing, but just for the sake so that we have a common level of understanding for the purpose of this workshop, just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. And so I wondered if anyone wanted to offer their perspective or what they see is the higher self. And again, realizing or recognizing that there's not going to be a precise definition of this, but just your perspective on what it is. And you can use the chat box or raise your hand or come off mute, however you'd like to do that. Okay, I see Danny. Feel free to come off mute if you'd like.
Yeah, I guess I see it as if you're thinking in terms of chakras, like chakras that are above, that are much higher than what we have in our physical bodies, and sort of accessing, I guess being aware of those higher chakras might be like a way of receiving communication. But I sort of think of it as sort of reaching a higher link on like a line of chakras.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. And I actually wouldn't have thought of it in that way, but yes, like, so the higher chakras, obviously, if you think of like the crown, everything that's associated with higher self communication for sure. So the upper chakras, definitely a way to communicate and connect with the higher self. And like I said, I don't think that there's a precise definition of what it is, but there's a definition that I came across from a journalist that a journalist offered, and it resonated with me. So I thought I'd share it. The higher self is the part of you that is unencumbered by ego and the divisions it can stoke between you and your fellow humans. It's the non-material dimension of you. Some call it a soul or spirit. That's part of the cosmic or celestial whole. So again, the reason why I think this resonated with me, and the journalist, her name was Stephanie Farrington. The reason why it resonated with me is because I like this aspect that the higher self is part of the cosmic or celestial whole. So it's part of us, but it's the part of us that's connected to the larger whole. And this definition mentions soul or spirit, and I think it might be tricky, or people might wonder, how is it distinguished from the soul or the spirit? And the way that I like to think of it is, if you think of like the higher self as being the aspect of the soul that's with you throughout your life, on the earth's plane. So whereas the soul travels with you from beyond. So at the end of your life, you transition off this earth and into the next plane. The soul will continue on, the spirit continues on, where the higher self is with you all throughout the life. And it's been with you before this life. If you believe in reincarnation, it was with you before and will be with you in the future. And so knowing that the higher self has or can have a higher perspective on your life than you do, since, I mean, you, the ego part of you, that exists on the earth. And so, you know, connecting with it can give you added perspective that you wouldn't otherwise have. And another thing that I think it's important to note is that the higher self is part of our spirit team. So, you know, our spirit team can consist of angels, spirit guides, ancestors, anyone that's in spirit, but that's helping us along our life path and along our life journey. The higher self is also a part of that team, an important part. And so it's also referred to as the spirit self. But again, I hear that most often in the UK, I've discovered. So how the higher self communicates. Now, what I have here are just the clairs. So these are, if you're familiar with psychic work, you're familiar with the clairs, with clairvoyance, which means clear seeing, which has to do with, you know, inner sight, not literal sight, and clairaudience, which means clear hearing. So being able to receive information through these psychic channels. I think we are mostly familiar with this, but just in case, clairaudience is associated with if you hear things, again, with your inner hearing, an inner sense of hearing, or like if you, like for me, for instance, I have songs frequently playing in my head, and my clairaudience is one of my stronger clair senses. Claircognizance, when you just have a knowing of something, you're not sure how you know it. Clairsentience, when you're able to feel or pick up on emotions or the environment. And then clairgustance, which is not really talked about that much, but is literally connected to taste, when you're able to pick up, you know, psychically information, you can taste it. So these are, the higher self can use these same channels that we're familiar with, but there are many different ways that the higher self can communicate. And, you know, this is by no means exhaustive, but you can receive communication in dreams, also in the waking state, just over the course of your regular day, through shamanic journeys. And what I've found is that the higher self often communicates in symbols. So if you think of in the dream state, when there are often things that, you know, aren't literal, but are symbolic, like, you know, there's symbols that, you know, like snakes and other things that can symbolize something else. You know, the communication may not always be literal. It can sometimes be symbolized, you know, in different ways, or abstract. And so also along these lines, I find that communication coming from the higher self can often be subtle. So it's not necessarily going to be that, you know, you hear someone saying, okay, Sarah, you need to get a job that aligns with your purpose more. It's like symbols and subtle like sensations, like you get a sense of something or you hear something. So the most important things in my experience in communicating with the higher self is to know that it can be done by setting your intention. So that's like the first step is being able to just set your intention to communicate and then receive information however it wants to come through. So there's really, I think, an openness associated with it, and an openness to how information might be received or shown to you. Yeah, so an example that I wanted to share of how the higher self can communicate in the dream state. And so, and also when I say the dream state, I mean literal dreams, but also I mean the states in between dream state and waking state. So as you're waking up from sleep, or as you're coming out of a dream, or as you're falling asleep, these are also ways or spaces that it can be easier to receive communication from spirit and from the higher self, because your brain waves have slowed down. And so you're not thinking as much, your logical mind is more quiet. And so it's easier for messages and information to come through. An example I wanted to share was of my name, Ava Marie, which is not my birth name, but this was a name that was given to me by spirit or by my higher self in the state between the dream and the waking state. And it's because I had set an intention to have a name that I wanted to use, or that I felt comfortable using publicly with my healing work. And I couldn't come up with anything. And I thought about it for a while, and I didn't want something that I felt like sounded corny or whatever. And I also didn't want to use like my birth name. And so then after a while of not coming up with something, I just sort of like moved on and didn't really, just sort of sat on it and, forgot, I guess, for a while. But then one night I had a dream, and then in the dream, it seemed that I was hearing. So the message was, you could use the name Ava Marie for your healing work. I mean, it was that clear and direct. And so then I woke up because sometimes I think if there's something that's really startling you and it's you're in the dream state, you can wake up quickly. It like wakes you out of it because it was like a little bit startling. And so I wrote it down because I will forget immediately. And that's literally where my name came from. And then only after did I make connections and realize how appropriate it was for me to use for several reasons I hadn't even thought of. Like, there's people mentioned to me a few times about Ave Maria, which has to do with being connected to, like, I think Catholics use it. I'm not Catholic, so I didn't even know about that. And also I like to use two names. It's something that runs through my family. And my real name is also two names. And I also like names that start and end with A lot. And so anyway, I would never have thought of this. So the idea is, in order to recognize when things are coming from the higher self, meaning they're coming through you and not from you, it's like you get information sometimes that you would not have thought of that yourself. Like, it's something that came to you. So I just wanted to give that as an example. And then make sure. Okay, so for different ways to connect. So there are several listed here, but again, this is by no means exhaustive. These are different ways that I've used to connect. But you'll see the first, I just have meditation, just because, not that you always need to meditate to connect with your higher self, but it is one avenue that you can connect with directly. But also meditation enables you to be more sensitive and able to pick up on subtle perceptions over time, so that you can distinguish between your thoughts, your logical mind, and stuff that's coming from elsewhere. But again, this takes practice, and all of these things take practice. Another thing are visualization exercises. There was one that was taught to me by my mediumship mentor. I've done work with mediumship, and it's called, this is just an example of one that was given to me, but it's like a colors exercise. And in this exercise, you can be still and set an intention to connect with your higher self, and bring your attention to first your solar plexus and allow a color to come to mind. And the color is being sent from the higher self. So you allow the color to be sent to come into your awareness. And then you breathe consciously the color into the solar plexus. And you breathe it in until you feel like you've exhausted, like you don't need to breathe it in anymore. And then you move on to the heart. You allow a color to come to your awareness from higher self. You breathe that color into the heart center, and then you move up to the throat and so forth. And that's just a form of relationship building almost with the higher self. And it helps you to strengthen the connection and to sort of blend in a sense. You practice receiving messages or receiving the information and then moving on. That's just one exercise that I've learned. And then dream work, I gave an example of dream work, but this is actually probably the most active space for higher self connection for me. This is where most of my information comes, is in the dream state, or the state between waking and dream. So coming out of sleep. And a good practice for this is to have a dream journal. And what I do is I keep it under my pillow, my journal. And there's just, because it's common to not remember the dream, which is actually fine to not remember your dreams, because you can, first of all, set an intention before you go to sleep. You can say, one thing that I do, and that was taught to me, is before you go to sleep, you can say to yourself 3 times, tonight I give myself permission to remember my dreams. Tonight I give myself permission to remember my dreams. And then you say that 3 times, and then you go to sleep. And that's giving an indication to your higher self that you'd like to remember what is being shared. And you can also do this with a specific topic. So for instance, I was once looking, the last time I was on an apartment hunt in New York City, which is a whole thing for those of you familiar with the New York City market. I wanted help with that from my higher self. And so I said, tonight I give myself permission to remember my dreams, but specifically about my apartment search, because I was having, I was trying to decide whether or not to go with a place or not. And so what happens sometimes if you set that intention is you wake up in the middle of the night, and when you wake up, there will be something there, like either a thought will come to mind, or for me, an image or series of images. And, this is, if it's the middle of the night, because that's, again, when the mind is quietest, the brain waves have slowed down. So you can receive the information more clearly or directly. You'll find that something will come through and you'll be woken up. That was my experience, is I got some really good guidance that way in the middle of the night. And then also, in the early morning hours, I can, like, as I'm coming out of the sleep state, there will be sometimes information that can come through. If you set an intention, the most important part is you have to let it be known consciously that you're interested in receiving info. So anyway, a lot to say on that. And then another thing is cards. And I might actually just really quickly grab my card deck, because I thought that I had, 1 second. So another thing that is possible is to try to blend with spirit before you use cards. So a lot of people have tarot cards or angel cards. I've had a tarot deck for a while, but I use it. I don't necessarily use it as often recently as I use another deck, which I'm not sure how well you can see, but these cards are, they're called encaustic wax cards, and they were made by an artist who is a medium. So she's a practicing medium, but I think she made these by using paint and then rubbing over. I don't know how exactly she used an iron and like ironed over paint or something. But anyway, some of the designs I find beautiful, but they're very abstract at the same time. But you can also use tarot cards. It's fine. But if you're using tarot cards, you don't necessarily need to use the literal meaning of the cards. You can just use them to jog. You can blend with your higher self, and then you can use a bit of the card symbolism, but then allow the higher self to sort of communicate through you. So we unfortunately don't have, and I realize this, we don't really have that much time for me to demonstrate a lot of these. But this is something that I've been practicing with more recently, just as a way to strengthen like confidence and information flow that's coming from spirit. So this is another thing that you can use. Also shamanic journeys, which are, I think people are familiar with. I wasn't that familiar with it until probably about last year. And the reason that I started to use this, I also got, this is also something that I received from my higher self, was the guidance to use the shamanic journeys. So that's why I became interested. And I actually did a training at a center based out in Berkeley, California, called Sacred Stream. And the founder of this center developed a way that you can use shamanic journeying almost as in response to your own inquiries. So in other words, you can use a journal. It can even be the same journal you use for dreams. And you can write a question and then do a journey, so that there's a drum track, essentially. And you do a journey, and these journeys may just be like, the track that I use is like only 12 minutes. But in that 12 minutes, like a lot can happen. A lot can be shown to you in the 12 minutes. And so this is another form that I use. And if you're familiar at all with shamanic journeys, then you know that they use, like, there's like a lower world and upper world, and each world has like different guides. And so you communicate or shown thing by your guides in these worlds. But this honestly is also a space for the higher self. And oftentimes I find some of the same symbols being used across spaces. So for instance, in the dream state, one symbol that's used is, like, for instance, a car driving can symbolize someone's life journey. So if you have for example, a dream about you're driving in a car, and then all of a sudden the car veers off course and is spinning out into, I don't know, off the side of the road into the forest or something, it can literally mean like there's a sense of your life veering off course. So in the same way that symbol can be used in dreams, it can also show up in journeys, I've noticed. And I think it's because journeys are also within that realm between the dream and waking state, where your brain waves are slower, and I don't know, some of the same symbols get used. So this is another way that I found the higher self can communicate. And then the last thing that I have here is free writing, which you may be familiar with free writing, but it essentially involves journaling, and this can be in response to a question or not. But essentially what you do is you can write a question that you have. And my regular journal is actually on my computer. So I type a question, and then free writing, you just write unfiltered without stopping for at least 3 minutes. So you can't stop. And it's what is coming out is whatever comes to you. So whatever your feelings, whatever's on your mind, you just start writing. And over the course of your writing, you will find that other things start to come through that that are coming from another source. And of course, at the beginning, you would have set the intention to receive a message from your higher self, or to get communication from your higher self. And so this is another way that you can connect, is through the use of writing. So let me just check how we're doing on time. Okay, so I think, okay, so now what I would like to do is just sort of transition, if folks feel comfortable, into a little meditation / visualization exercise. And this is to help you meet and connect with your higher self, and for your higher self to communicate with you how it wishes to communicate. So whether that's through, for me, like I've named a lot of the ways that it communicates, but also I have a sort of practice now where when I sit to meditate, I can feel that my higher self is with me. Like I actually get a physical sensation from my back. So like a small push forward to let me know, that's like letting me know that spirit is ready to work. I mean, sometimes when I'm doing healing, not sometimes, always when I'm doing healing work, now I get an indication when spirit is ready to work. But you can ask specifically higher self to distinguish, to like basically let you know that it's here with you. So anyway, so this visualization is to do that. And if you haven't already, you can feel free to find a comfortable position. And I'm going to make sure that there's no background noise. I have a white noise machine. Can everyone hear me? I'm going to assume that's a yes. So I'm just getting situated. I use the Insight Timer app to make sure that I don't go over time. Okay. So as I mentioned, you can feel free to get comfortable. Allow yourself to just sort of transition out of thinking mode into being more present, drawing your awareness to the space, the environment, the room that you're in. You're feeling the air immediately surrounding your body, about 2 to 3 inches out. And then you can also just start to feel the weight of your body against the seat that you're on. Feel the different parts of your skin resting against the surface. Feel the weight of your chair or the surface that you're resting on against the floor. And then visualizing or seeing how the floor connects through the foundation of the building or the house that you're in into the earth, the ground. Bringing to your awareness that you are also connected with the earth. We're just going to start to bring our awareness back into our bodies, maybe by feeling the aliveness in the palms of your hands. Skin on your back. You feel your body start to readjust, you can just allow that to happen. Next, we're going to try short breathing exercise called 4-7-8 breathing. It's very simple. The way it works is when you inhale, you're going to count to 4. Then at the top of the breath, you'll hold for 7 counts. Exhaling and releasing 8 counts. So on your next inhale, feel free to count to 4. Hold for 7. And releasing to 8. Feel free to continue this at your own pace, allowing the rhythm to form. Over time, you'll start to feel your body, your mind relax and release a little bit more. Next, you can start to visualize your chakras starting to open up, starting at the base of your spine, with the root chakra. If you can visualize a beautiful ruby red lotus flower start to open up, spinning clockwise. Red energy flowing through chakra. Traveling up now to the sacral, visualize an orange lotus flower start to open up where the chakra is, emitting an orange glow, blending with the red light underneath.
Ava, could you please move closer to the mic?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Next, traveling upward to the solar plexus. Start to visualize a yellow lotus flower open up, spinning clockwise. Yellow energy that flows through and blends with the colors underneath. Moving up to the heart, green lotus flower opening up. Green energy flowing through it and blending. Next, the throat chakra. There's a light blue, beautiful lotus flower appearing over the chakra that starts to open up and spins clockwise, allowing energy to expand and flow through it. The third eye, beautiful violet lotus flower, spinning clockwise. And finally, the largest lotus flower on top of your head. You can visualize it as white, pink, starting to open up. All of this energy blending and flowing through you and around you. Next, we're going to visualize that you are standing at the bottom of a stairwell. And at the top of this stairwell, there is a platform and a large wooden door. This door is going to lead you into another realm where you can access your spirit team, specifically your higher self. I'm going to count from 1 to 10. When I reach 10, you'll emerge on the platform. 1, starting to walk up the stairwell. 2, 3, 4, gradually making your way up. 5, 6, feeling yourself moving into this higher realm. 7, 8, 9, almost there. 10. You're now on the platform. Go ahead and use your hand to twist the doorknob to the right, allowing light to flow and billow out of this room that you're walking into. Feel free to walk in to this room. And here you'll find different members of your spirit teams, your spirit guides, ancestors, angels, fairies, everyone who works with you and is here to support you. Feel free to have a seat and get comfortable. You spot your higher self in this room. Allow it to come toward you. If you'd like, you can get up and shake its hand, introduce yourself. Allow yourself to just meet and get acquainted. And then you can ask your higher self how it wishes to communicate with you and what you may receive. And maybe any range of things, whatever it is, it's okay. Just allow it to respond how it wishes, whether that's through something that's visualized, felt, or heard. And don't worry if what you receive doesn't make sense to you now. It may make more sense to you in the future. What's more important is you start to get acquainted with your higher self and its energy. How it feels, whatever it wishes to communicate. In a few moments, and start to get ready to leave this room. And start by thanking your higher self for what it's shared with you and what the spirit world have shared with you. And know that you can come back to this space and communicate with spirit whenever you'd like. Now we're going to start to leave the room, walking back toward the door, opening it, seeing the stairwell, and gently closing the door behind you. Start to make your way back down the stairs. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, reaching the bottom of the stairwell now. And just starting to visualize yourself coming back to the earth, starting to feel your presence in the environment, the room that you're in. Perhaps feeling the air against your skin and the weight of your body against the surface that you're resting on. And then whenever you're ready at your own pace, you can come back and open your eyes, but there's no rush. And I am now seeing the messages that people couldn't hear me. I apologize. I'm very sorry about that. Thanks, Donna, for letting me know. My voice can be quite soft sometimes. So I'm curious if, like, I know we don't have that much time, and that apparently you couldn't hear me for part of that. So I'm curious if anyone felt compelled to share their experience. And again, totally optional. This is a non-forced sharing space.
I'll share. This is Martine. So, as I was getting to the top of the stairs, it was like, well, actually, after I got to the top of the stairs and I was on the platform and I was going through the door, it was like everything was pink and magenta. And I just had this overwhelming sense of love. And then I started seeing white light mixed in with it. So the pink became lighter. But then I saw like pastel rainbow colors all around me. And then I just had the presence of I could feel the presence of my sister as the white light became stronger. And I've been thinking about her a lot because she passed away in November. And I just miss her, miss her so much. And I could just feel her presence. And I just started crying because I miss her so much. And I was thinking about her a lot this week. And then as it was time to leave, it was like, she's okay. I just kept hearing, she's okay, she's okay. And I didn't want to let go, but I had to let go. And then as I came back down the stairs, it's like I walked out of my front door because my stairs are in front of my front door and they are wooden. And then it's like I just walked in the grass and walked on the driveway and I could feel the concrete.
Thank you so much for sharing and for being vulnerable enough to share that. It really means a lot. It kind of reminded me, so, we're talking about the higher self, which is a part of the spirit realm and spirit, and it sounds like you were able to connect directly with spirit, not only, but directly also with your sister. And I think that that's really beautiful. And I'm really glad that you had that experience. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So I'd like to, again, be conscientious of time unless there's someone else that would like to share. Just because I know that we're going to have more space we want to have some space for questions at the end. So I'm going to move. Okay, so the next and final thing to talk about, or that I wanted to talk about, is just about maintaining a relationship and what that can look like. So I think one of the most important things that is involved in maintaining a relationship, I mean, this is with anything, maintaining a relationship with anything or anyone, is just is practice. And so for me, I mean, regular, I think consistent practice is the reason why I'm able to communicate about any of this with you all, just because had it not been for my regular practice, I don't think that I would have even been able to discern a lot of what I have up to this point. It took me a while it took me a long time to even understand or realize some of what I now recognize as communication with higher self, that was even a reality. And I think also there was a period where I was like, oh, I'm getting input, but is it from like a guide, or is it from an ancestor? Is it my grandmother? I don't know. Like, I didn't know, like, sometimes we receive info and it can come from any number of places. And maybe sometimes, honestly, it doesn't matter depending on what, meaning doesn't matter where it's coming from, depending on what is the situation that you're wanting to get guidance on. But I've found it, I'd say, useful to understand, when my higher self is communicating with me through practice, because once I know that this is what's happening, I feel there's like a confidence that comes with that, especially between distinguishing if something is coming from me or if it's coming from a higher self. Like, I find that helpful. And so that's just to state the importance of consistency. And one of the ways that I think brings consistency is finding, like, what are the easiest, like, less, what's the word? What are the easiest ways that you can integrate and, like, this sort of increased awareness of the higher self into your day-to-day life? And for me, it's just sort of like adding it on to stuff that I already do anyway. So one of the things that I do is meditate. Everyone doesn't, but that's something that I started doing. So since I have this routine where I get up and that's the first thing that I do, that's just like a part of my day-to-day, like brushing my teeth, kind of. And so I don't even think about it. I don't think about when it fits into my schedule, but I know that this isn't the same for everyone. So if meditation, for instance, was something that you wanted to incorporate, then you could just think of, like, what's the easiest, like, low hanging fruit in order to do that, even if it's not doing it every day. But if it's like, I don't know, on Saturdays, I have time, like when I get up, because I don't have to get up and do work or something else. Also, with something like dream work, we all sleep and we all dream even if we don't remember it. But to me, this is another low-hanging fruit because I know I'm going to do it every night. And so to put a journal under my pillow and just keep it there, like, I find that is also an easy way that doesn't require that much effort. The only effort really that's required is, or it takes up a little bit of time, but not really that much time, is writing down, like, what happened after I get up. So writing down, and it takes a little bit of effort sometimes because it's first of all, it leaves immediately. And so sometimes I have to piece back together, like, bits of what happened. And so that takes a few minutes. I'm like, wait, and then but then as I start to do that, more comes back to me and more trickles in. If it's something where you've asked a question and you just wake up in the middle of the night, and then obviously that's when you would write it down, what happened in the middle of the night. The only challenge, or the main challenge I would see, I would observe myself having with this is, like, and this is something that could probably be solved easily, and I haven't done it yet. But at night, you can't see what you're writing. So oftentimes, like, in order to not lose what I got, I just pick up the journal and I just get under my pillow and just take it out and just start writing, so that for sure I'm not going to lose it. But then I can't read all of it, and so so then that's like an extra step of interpreting, like, what is there, like, when it's daytime. Yes, but if I've considered getting, like, a night light or something. But again, anything that requires, like, an extra step of, like, turning on the light, like, that's like precious time, like precious seconds where you can lose some of it. And so I still haven't done that yet. Some people record what they get. So they have, like, a recorder by their bed. I guess people don't use recorders anymore. You'd probably just use your phone or something. But people will record as soon as they get up if they don't if they can't read what they wrote. But anyway, that's something, all that is to say is that that's something that, you know, we all do, is like sleep at night. So I found that to be sort of an easier lift. And then the other things, obviously you can find time and ways to integrate as you're interested and able. Trying to make sure there's nothing else I wanted to mention here. But yeah, so also things that you already use, obviously. So if you already use cards, that's an easier lift, or if you already journal, that might be more appealing to you. So yeah, the most important thing I'd say to building the relationship is to just keep approaching the higher self. But then again, also, if you set your intention, you know, there are things that may show up unexpectedly. You may receive communication in unexpected ways, like even just over the course of your day-to-day life. You know, a thought may emerge or appear in your mind. That happens to me sometimes too. And the thought is something that I had a dream about, but I forgot it. But it's like being put back into my head again. Yeah, so with that, oh, these are just some resources. So sitting in the power meditation is something that mediums use to connect with spirit. They do it, I mean, they don't call it meditation actually, so maybe I shouldn't use that term, but they just build a connection with their own spirit and like expand out their aura, their auric field to connect with spirit. And I just put two names here that can be, they're on YouTube. And so it's like those meditations are there. I can also see about if people are interested in like sending this to you via email some way, if people are interested. Sacred Stream is the center in Berkeley that I mentioned. Their workshops are virtual as well as in person. So the director of the center, Isa Gucciardi, does a lot of dream work type training too, as well as shamanic journeys and Buddhist meditation training. And then the wax cards that I showed were by a woman named Charla Ray. And binaural beats are something that, I mean, I know that there are apps with those, but there's also a lot on YouTube. It's basically binaural beats. The idea behind it is that these beats or these frequencies can trigger your brain waves to operate at a certain rate. And this is something that you can find again on YouTube. There's like tons of them all over. People just play them and have them in the background for hours. And it's just like music that you can play, but underneath it, there's a certain frequency being emitted, like a sound frequency, and it triggers a certain reaction in the brain waves. And so I just put those here because it's something else that helps slow down the brainwave, induce a meditative state and what have you, which is, you know, allows for communication to come through more easily. So that's all that I wanted to share with you today. Thanks everyone for your time. I just put my Instagram, which is Rivage Healing, and my website and my email address. So if anyone wants to reach out or send me DMs, feel free. I am not very good with social media, but it's something that I have. I do have it. So anyhow, if folks would like to ask questions or have a conversation, I'm open to that now. And I see people looking at the slides, but I can also see about sharing any of this. So I will stop my screen share.
One of my thoughts was that one way you can get in touch is to ask a question before you go to sleep.
Mhm.
You can certainly invite any spirit. They will not approach you. You need to invite them. So if you ask eventually for your higher self and then ask a question, and for me, most of the time I'll wake up with the answer.
Yep, definitely. Yeah. Asking the question before you go to sleep, writing it down in the journal, and then
Mhm.
either way you want to do that,
Mhm.
I found that I usually get a response of some sort.
Mhm.
Does anyone have any questions or just any other comments like Barb's? Could you
I like your floor desk.
my floor my floor desk? Thank you. I also, so this is just like kind of an awkward setup that I have because I'm with my family home now where I grew up. This is not where I usually am. I'm usually in New
Oh.
York City. And so I have this floor chair, and I actually have the same one in my apartment in New York. I just bought it again.
Ah.
I liked it. Thanks for that, Holly. Yes, so I can also just put my contact info in the chat right here if that's easier. So
Can you also say the name of those cards again? I know you just said them, but I thought you wrote them down, but I don't see them written down.
yes, I will do that as well.
Ava, could you pull up that screen where you did give the resources? Because I believe the cards were on there.
Yes. Why
And
don't
then maybe we can just copy and paste it into the chat.
yeah, why don't I put up that slide again?
Hmm.
Okay. Can you see loading? Can you see that?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So for the cards, it's just Charlotte Ray, her website. I think it's like charlotteray.com. And I think these are the only thing that she sells. It's on this, but I'm not sure. Does anyone else have any questions, or I didn't actually mean to scroll. Or feedback.
I would just like to say thank you, and thank you for everyone who's here. We're sharing a lot of energy and learning something new every single time. Takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there, so I appreciate you.
Well, thank you so much for allowing, this space.
Yeah, Ava, thank you. I thought that was wonderful, but because again, every time I learn something new that I hadn't learned before, I always appreciate, person who came forward with it. So very much grateful for it.
It was very thoughtful and enjoyable. So thank you.
Thank you.
And if there's anything else that comes to you that you're like, that maybe I just winged through or zipped through that you are interested in hearing more about, like I said, just feel free to reach out to me. As I mentioned, I wasn't really able to go that much in detail as I could have until especially the different tools that one can use and how you can use them and stuff. So, but obviously love to chat with anyone about this. So all aspects. So I'm welcome to any communication or feedback.
Great. And do you have a website for anybody who wants to contact you further? Do you have that?
Yes. So I dropped it. I'll just drop it again. It's just rivajhealing.com. It's in the chat. pretty simple. It's pretty, I set it up, and yeah, that's the website. But yeah, I can be reached by email or by IG. So
Okay, great.
And Ava, EL had a question. Do you do any channeling with higher self?
so I mean, I would be curious to hear more about what you consider channeling, but from my understanding of channeling, yes, like, so some of the different modalities that I've shared involve the use of channeling. So, for instance, like communicating. So the way that I articulate it is I blend with spirit. So I blend with my higher self, and I may ask a question, and the answer will come through the higher self to me as I'm writing it. Again, I'm not sure if that's the way that you meant by channeling, but I would say that pretty much every time that I do healing, I also connect with the higher self, and the higher self helps me as well with healing work. And like I said, when I use what's called trance healing, and I think all of us do, we're just using different terms for some of this, but with that, I'm blending and channeling healing energy from healing guides specifically. So, and the higher self is involved with this because the higher self helps us connect with the spirit realm. So anytime I'm channeling any sort of spiritual energy, the higher self is involved with that channeling. Does that make sense? Or
Mhm.
I have a question. What have you found to be the most kind in sort of discerning between our ego or inner child versus our higher self? And if there's a little competition for the airwaves, how do you what's your most gentle, kind process for making room, discerning, but also making room, to quiet the parts of ourselves that are chiming in order to hear more?
oh my God, I just had this exact experience like a few days ago. So I'm going to stop sharing because I hope everyone got that info. So basically, like, I was meditating, and I was like, oh, here's a live topic at work, having an issue, a situation with a colleague. And I was like, let me tune in and ask my higher self for guidance. And what I got was not what I expected at all, meaning it's just like not what I wanted to hear basically about the situation. So, I mean, it was basically saying that this relationship or friendship was like, and it was ending, and was like, it wasn't saying it like that, but it was like showing this transition. And I was like, what? And then I sort of freaked, and I was angry. And so I just left the meditation angry. And then I tried, and I like used different ways. I was like, I journaled. And actually, this is what gave me more clear, sufficient evidence or input. But I asked questions, and sometimes I can do that and then just receive the response and write it down. And so then I felt like I was getting a bit more neutral of an answer that I was like less angry with. And then like I tried like a third thing. I was just like really not expecting that answer. And so then what I did was I just like sort of prayed. I was just like, well, because sometimes if you are too close to the issue, or that what it is that you are looking for guidance on, you're going to bias, or you could bias yourself, or just ignore, or just like I said, just like freak out or whatever. So like, I don't like this answer or whatever. So sometimes if you just ask, you can ask the higher self or, the universe to show you the way, or just to help you with the situation, or for more info, and then just release it. And then you'll see you get a response to your question or to the situation, but in different ways that didn't involve you feeling like you're putting in some effort, or having that ego self come in. And when I did this, in the 48 hours, I documented 7 different ways that I had gotten answers like that, that were sort of building off of each other, but were in the same sort of direction. So the first answer, which I rejected, I'm sorry, I rejected the first response that I got from my higher self. But then I was able to get responses in different ways through other signs, which were clearly addressing the same situation. One of them, actually, Alice was at the Reiki share this past Sunday. So like, because they had a technical glitch, I was the only one that came. Because I just had the screen on, the Zoom on in the background, because oh yeah, Donna, yeah, because it was, because of the technical glitch, like I just happened to have the Zoom on in my background. But when Melvin finally came on and did his portion, he read a poem, and the poem was like a very clear and direct response to the situation, which aligned with all the other responses I was getting and dreams and whatever. So I just got like a bunch of responses, and I didn't feel like I had to struggle in the same way that I felt conflicted before. So anyway, sometimes if you just sort of put the intention out there and then just relax and carry on with your day.
Yeah, you took the urgency out of it, which is really good too, by what you just described, and the urgency to know now. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just be like, why? Well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't, I was kind of upset about that. But yeah, that's what I found.
Thank you.
I have a question. So I recently traveled overseas. We went on a cruise in the Mediterranean, and I usually don't remember my dreams a lot of the time, but I was having a lot of vivid dreams when I was away. And I wasn't sure why. I guess I never bothered to sit down and ask why either. But I didn't know if it had something to do with me being more relaxed or being on the water or what was happening. But I just wanted to know what your impression of that was.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like there are a lot of different reasons that we could be having more vivid dreams. That could be any range of things. But one of the things that you did mention is being relaxed and by the water. I have found, just putting it out there, that I personally feel more connected to spirit by the water. That's why the name of my whole website and everything that I'm doing is called Rivage, which means like seaside in French, by the water. And that's because, like, when I'm by the water and when I'm by the ocean, things seem to open up and be clear. And I am also more relaxed, and I can receive messages also more clearly, with, by the water. And I also feel like there are different places that carry a different energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that could have something to do with it too. I mean, there are definitely places, like, on the planet, depending on where you are, that have a different energy that can make one be more receptive, allow one to be more receptive to spirit and different sorts of energies that can be associated with vivid dreams. So that's the first thing that came into my mind. But as I mentioned, I think there could be several reasons.
Yeah, I definitely could sense openness, I guess is the only way I can really describe the feeling. And I don't know if it's because I started the trip by climbing the Acropolis. And then I went to, that really, really high place, and you could look out and see the ocean from the top of it. It was amazing. And then being on the ocean for 9 days. So I don't know, but I just wanted to put that out there. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, it could be that with the space with the Acropolis and where you were was more spiritually connected place. Like I said, energetically, there are spaces that are more that allow us to be more receptive. But yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ashley, would you want to say our closing prayer then? Please, just, to wrap up the session.
Okay. There's one, but there's one last question.
Okay.
From EL. It says, can you share your experience of higher self bringing healing to people besides messages? Okay, so I mean, I'd say the main way that, and I'm assuming you mean healing to other people, the main way that I've involved the higher self in healing is, I mean, I guess there are many ways to answer this, but the most obvious way is through spiritual healing work. So as I mentioned, like the higher self is involved in any sort of connection with spirit and helps me to connect and blend with other energies in the spiritual realm. And so in doing that, so in blending with the higher self and connecting with spirit, that helps me to sort of act as a channel, to create a channel through which I can direct healing to others. So that's the most obvious way. But if there's something that I specifically would like to do that involves healing outside of that sort of direct platform, like I guess there are many ways that you can say that healing can come through. Like, for instance, if I were writing something and I wanted to write something that would be beneficial and healing to the masses, I could ask my higher self for help with that, because healing can come in many forms, not just, like through spiritual healing, trance or Reiki, something like that. There are many ways that someone can be healed. Also through just mediumship work, like psychic mediumship. I'm not a professional medium, but I do practice sometimes, and it's another area that the higher self is involved with, because in any sort of work like that I'm doing that's spiritual in nature, I always ask my higher self to be present and to help me with the process, and also to help me connect with the other person's spirit team, my own, etc. So I think there are many different roles that it can play that can be used to support healing. I hope that is helpful. Okay, so the closing prayer. I don't know if there's a particular way that you do this, Alice.
It's the same one. It's my prayer of connection, but just do one that you're comfortable with.
Okay. And I've heard you do the prayer of connection a million times, and yet I do not, I still don't remember it.
Right. So do your own.
Well, I'd just like to start by thanking everyone again so much for coming, and also welcoming into this space my spirit team, all of our spirit team. And I can feel the presence of spirit as I'm saying this. I am setting my intent for what's been shared here to be for the highest good of everyone that's attended, the workshop today and the highest good of all those concerned. And I invite in angels, archangels, all of our spirit guides, and everyone that's associated with us in spirit to help us take away from this what we needed and to help us and guide us on our paths as we move forward in life. I would just like to seal the circle energetically with Reiki symbols, and thank you all so much again for coming. And I look forward to seeing you again soon, hopefully.
Thank you, Ava. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was lovely. Thank you.
So much, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Have a good week.
Excellent.